bir bursuyla İngiltere'ye gittiğimde kendisiyle çalışma fırsatı bulduğum bir arkadaşım. Hello, welcome to Hrissi.
Thank you. Thank you.
I meet with Dr. Hrissi when I went to England on higher education institution scholarship, and we work together. I am very happy to meet such a friend and colleague you. At that time, Hrissi was working on microplastics. She carried out very meaningful and beautiful works on this subject. I also studied the biodegradability of plastics in my doctorate thesis, and which exchange a lot of information on this subject. And even one of our publication has come to the publication stage. And then thanks to Dr. Onur Şen for technical support. Dr. Hrissi, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here today and present this topic with you. I am an environmental chemist. I work in the chemistry department in the University of Patras. And my research focuses on the development of biochar from biomass byproducts. And the second topic that I'm going to talk about today is plastic pollution, and especially microplastic pollution.
Thank you. Plastics are used in many different fields because they are light, cheap, and easy to produce, and it became one of the most important commercial materials of today. The use of plastics is increasing every day, and since most of these materials are disposable and their waste are not managed well, it brings environmental pollution problem. As the use of plastic increased, and biodegradable plastic came to the agenda of the world, but biodegradable plastics was not a solution. This time, microplastic have been a problem, and I want to ask you, what do you think? What are microplastics? Why are microplastics endangered?
Okay. Microplastics are pieces of plastic that are lower than 5 millimeters. All their dimensions are less than 5 millimeters. And we can separate them into different categories. We can find plastic pellets, which is the primary microplastics, and they come from the production of plastic. Usually they leave the oil factory in the these tiny particles, and they are usually white or clear, but after they are exposed to the sun in the environment, they turn into yellow or orange. And sometimes, as you can see in the picture, they can have a color in them, like blue and red. And they are polluters of the environment. We also have primary microplastics that come from consumption. A very interesting example is glitter, which is also a very fancy microplastic. But also we can find microplastics in products that we don't know, for example, in the toothpaste or in whitening creams, or they can be products that have been manufactured to be small, like toys or accessories of different products. And then we have secondary microplastics. They are plastic fragments from bigger plastics that have been exposed to the environment, and they degrade because of the action of the sun or because of mechanical action, or as you mentioned, because they are the so-called oxo-degradable, which they break easily into tiny microplastics, but they don't continue to degrade to CO2 or water. And now we have discovered that we also have nanoplastics, and these are very difficult to identify, and it's difficult to even to look at the microscope for this type of plastics, but we know they exist. And there is no doubt that a problem exists because the plastic continue to be manufactured, and we have an exponential growth of plastic production. We expect that by 2050, we will have 33 billion tons of plastic produced.
Sorry. I didn't. Technical problem. Yes, it's very, very dangerous because it's very, very small, and sometimes we can see microplastic, nanoplastics. What do we know about plastics? What do you know about recycling, Hrissi?
The problem is that we don't know many things about plastics because they are protected by patents, and we don't even know many things about recycling because there are so many different types of plastic. For example, some of them, the thermosets, they cannot be recycled. Then we have this type of code that show it looks like the recycling code, but actually it's not. It's the plastic resin identification code. So it's very confusing for the consumers, and they believe that all these are recycled, but in reality, only selected codes are recycled. For example, at this time, PVC is not possible to recycle, or polystyrene. It's not. And of course, there is this code, number 7, where all the other types of plastics are included here, and none of them can be recycled. And sometimes we collect plastic, but still they are not recycled into some countries. So they have to transport this to other countries. And we don't even know if they can be recycled in the other countries that we are sending them. And of course, there are different ways that this plastic end up into the environment, or microplastic or plastic resins. They can be transported through rivers or through the sewage pipes. And here you can see some examples from sewers that collect the plastic, the runoff from streets, and they reach the sea without any treatment. And we know that the wastewater treatment plant screens only can hold microplastics. And microplastics, they go through the wastewater treatment plant. Sorry. And recently we have published a book on microplastics in water and wastewater with help from IWA. And there we describe the transport and fate of microplastics in surface water and wastewater and effects on plants, aquatic species, and on humans. And the thing is that the plastic is accumulating in the sea, and there are different gyres throughout the world where these plastics are trapped. And although this was discovered in 1997, it took many years because before it was it has been a subject for scientific conferences. And you remember in 2018 that we went to this conference in Santiago together and learned many things about this topic.
Yes.
We all know about the effects of microplastics, and it's easy to see.
Okay. It's a very big problem. Our Ministry of Environmental and Urbanization in Turkey is working on this issue, and some universities. It's a big problem. What do you think? Why do we care for microplastics?
Yes, that's the thing, that for microplastics we can see the problem. Of course, in our countries, in Greece and in Turkey, we don't see this much problem. But for microplastics, we cannot see the actual problem. So why do we care? Is problems related to effects on animals and problems that we cannot see. For example, birds, seabirds, they eat microplastics, and the microplastics gather into their stomach. And although they feel that they have enough food, in reality they starve and they stop eating and die from starvation. Then sometimes there are microbes that they are attached to microplastics, and because microplastics float on the sea, they continue their journey to other countries or other ecosystems that are not used to these microbes, and this is an ecological disaster. Also, there are some studies that show that fish, when they eat microplastics, they have some type of problem in their internal organs. And not only when the plastic contains toxins on them, but only because they digest plastic, they can find some effects on the liver of the fish. And what are these toxins that I talk about? Microplastics.
Another problem, maybe it's very big.
Very big, and not many people, when they make documentaries, they don't talk about this. But it's the biggest problem. It's because of the additives that have been added when we make microplastics. We add this type of chemicals either to make them, give them color, or make them shiny, make them soft, make them hard. We add these additives, and these additives are endocrine disrupting chemicals. Also, because the microplastic floats, they are lighter than the seawater. They come in contact with all the pollutants in the seawater, and they accumulate them on the surface or inside, depending on the plastic type. And we can find, or we have found in different studies, PCBs, DDTs, even polyaromatic hydrocarbons and insecticides on this plastic. So when they are transferred into the body of animals or people, these additives or the sorbed chemicals, they are transferred into the body of the organism that digest or ingest these chemicals. And we have published a book with Professor Takada from Japan on this topic, where we explain in great detail about the chemicals that are associated with the plastics in the marine environment. And although you see the pollution from microplastics is obvious, but for microplastics, we don't know, but we know they are everywhere now. They are in bottled water, but also we have found them in fish.
Hrissi, sorry. Yes? I read in an article that we consume as much plastic as a credit card in a year. It's very
not with our, not with our will. We don't do that because we like plastic, but because we don't know that we are eating it. That's the problem. And there are some epidemiological studies from textile industry where they use, synthetic fibers. And there are several health problems, especially related to pregnancy, that have been caused from exposure to synthetic plastic. And from our study in the University of Patras, we have found microplastics from medical waste. These are from pills, from medical pills, and we found them at the exit at the effluent of wastewater. But also there are studies that found microplastics in drinking water. Everywhere in the world, you can see, from US, from Europe, from Uganda, from India, and so on. And even in the bottled drinking water. And here the plastic that they found is not only polypropylene that is in the bottle caps or PET, that is the material that is made the bottle, but they found other types of plastics that we don't know where they came from.
You remember scientists explained for the first time there are microplastic in drinking water in United States. You remember in a Congress?
Yes, and everybody was looking at TV to see this problem. And, when we started looking, for example, we had a paper in 2013 in Nature, and we have looked at the literature. We found 300 species interacting with plastic in their body. And when we wrote this book 5 years later, they were like 600 600 species that we found that they have plastic inside the body. And 17% of the red list threatened species out of the 693 marine ones. So it's a big problem. And the problem also is that we don't only have physical effects on the organisms, but there are also behavioral problems. For example, fish, they swim slower when they have eaten plastic. So their predators are easier to eat the fish.
I'm sad to see this photograph.
Which one? This one, huh?
This one. And yes. These photographs.
I thought it was a Photoshop. I didn't believe, it was a real picture. But it is. This one is a real picture.
But there are some photographs about the plastics and fish and birds. It's very, very interesting.
And of course, we don't know what happens. Yes, we don't know what happens to the trophic chain if how plastics move from small organisms to fish to people. We don't know many things about this yet.
Okay, thank you. There is a problem about these plastics and microplastics, nanoplastics. What is the solution methods for microplastic? Okay, what should we do about this problem?
Yes, I think one most important thing is to have some priorities. We are, as individuals, we should try to rethink of our consumer habits and try to favor prevention, minimization of the use of plastic. And we can talk about reuse and recycle before we go to energy recovery or disposal. I think disposal is the last one. Energy recovery is close to the last one, since with the energy recovery, we are losing raw materials. And this should be only used for plastic that cannot be recycled. So we need to prevent the formation of pollutants, of plastic pollutants. And I know you are very active in the circular economy or the zero waste initiatives in the University of Samsung. With
we prepare. Yes, we prepare a report about this in Black Sea region, Middle Black Sea region. And we have some studies about this. Our university has received a zero waste certificate about this.
Oh, that's very good.
Your share?
Yes, 1 minute here.
Okay.
And okay, some ideas is to try to save microplastic, try to remove microplastic from wastewater before it reaches the wastewater treatment plant. For example, in Japan, for many years now, they have this kind of traps, the filters. They collect the plastic fibers coming from our clothes, and they collect them before they go into the sewage pipes. So it is easier to collect them now before they reach the big volumes of wastewater. Also, there are some ideas to try to treat water, road runoff water before it reaches the sea. Or especially, this is very important, try to regulate the use of microplastics into products that we cannot see that they exist. Some initiatives, they try to clean the road before we have storms or big rains, or people try to clean systems. The circular economy idea is to have local products, so we don't have to use the packaging. And I have seen this in a Turkish hotel in Turkey. You can use even eatable containers instead of using, plastic individual packaging. But of course, all these have gone very bad with the pandemic of COVID-19, because people now want single-use items because they feel safer. And of course, there were some ideas that didn't work. For example, oxo-degrading plastic bags. Instead of creating of solving the problem, they created the bigger problem of microplastics. So we couldn't recycle them with the rest of the plastic. We had to recycle them separately. But for example, in Greece, there was never a recycling cycle for oxo-degradable plastic bags. So
there is a problem in the connection, and I didn't see. Yes, we can continue. Technical problem.
When did you see my
adopt a drain program?
Okay. Sorry about this. I had
sorry.
I had this slide where we propose the use of the local products to decrease packaging instead of using, single dose package. You can use local products and wash the containers, or as I have seen this in this hotel in Turkey, you can use eatable containers to minimize waste. But the problem is that with the pandemic of COVID-19, this has stopped because most people feel more safe to have the single-use plastic, as in this case, because they think they are cleaner and safer. And some ideas like oxo-degrading plastic bags, you know very well that we try to use this to solve the problem of the plastic, but we created a bigger problem like microplastics. And the problem with these oxo-degrading plastic bags was that you couldn't recycle them with the rest of the plastics. So you had to recycle them separately. And this never happened in Greece, for example. We didn't have a cycle for oxo-degrading bags, and in most of the world there was no such a program. And the only thing that worked was the plastic bag bans, and they have very good results. And sometimes it's easier to recycle when you have very good instructions. And when the instructions are good, then you get better recycling ratios. For example, here, you have to make very clear what can be recycled. And of course, education, like we are doing now, creating this video, is helping people to get awareness and information about this type of problem. And I would like to thank you for this opportunity to talk about this problem.
I wonder if we are a little late. And I want to ask, is there enough awareness? And because, plastics has entered our lives everywhere. We use in the everywhere plastics. What do you think about this?
Yes.
For words, our words, not only our country.
Yes. They say, you know, if you count the plastics that you touch from the minute you wake up till the minute you drink your coffee, there are more than 50 plastics that you touch before you drink your coffee in the morning.
You remember in Congress in United States, you remember all plastics not use, didn't use. It's very we surprised, but it may be do. Could you tell about, you have a lot of books on this subject. I know you prepare a handbook about this microplastic. You have a lot of publication on this subject and your books. Can you tell us a little bit about this, as microplastics in water and wastewater? Your
In
book.
Sorry, I didn't understand about the.
You prepare you have a lot of publication. You can talk about this, your publication, and you prepare a handbook of plastic. You in Greece.
Yeah.
You,
Okay.
okay. Can you tell about this subject?
Yeah, it's a book about microplastics that talks about current knowledge about what microplastics are, like we did today, and also some stories related to how the scientists started to think about microplastics. You know, at the beginning we thought, oh, the microplastics are small pieces of plastic. But later on, we found that there are nanoplastics also that we cannot see. And the problem is much bigger than we thought initially. So I'm talking about such stories, how the scientific community started to think about microplastics, and what we have found so far that is not very, you know, pleasant.
Yes. There are four. Yes, okay. There are four principal solutions, I understand, that will have high impact on preventing terrestrial and freshwater microplastic from forming. One of them is identify and quantify microplastic sources. And then the second one, scale zero waste strategies is very important. And then the last one is very important, pursue policy-driven EPR and develop novel business solution. And then we can solve this problem. Okay?
Yes, but you know, study, and they say if we do everything that we know about plastic, we stop using single-use plastics, so and so and so. In 2050, let's say, we can only have decreased the microplastic pollution by 30%.
Oh, okay.
Only 30%.
I want to ask a question because I studied about biodegradation of plastics in my PhD degree thesis. We talk about the biodegradation of plastics, but what do you think about the biodegradation of plastics? Is good or not good?
I don't think it's possible, to be honest. I mean, I have seen that, you know, oxo-degradable, they can break, the starch can break, but then the polyethylene stays intact, as you have studied in your PhD. So I haven't seen any studies that are very, you know, how to say, optimistic about biodegradation of plastic. And you don't want this to happen, because if you use plastic items, you don't want them to break easily. Yeah. So it's not. It's very tricky, let's say this.
Yeah. We studied in multidisciplinary studies. This is the effects of biodegradable plastics in mulch, used as mulch in the soil, in water study. I wonder the results. It's very tricky. You say it's good. Thank you for joining our program and sharing your valuable information.
Thank you so much.
Stay healthy, and we are waiting for you in Samsun after the pandemic stage.
I will be happy to meet you again in person. Looking forward to that.
I want to look. There are some questions.
Okay.
Hi, I say hi to Yanis and Hassan. Write to us. I am waiting your meeting. Thank you very much, Hrissi. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.